Woo! Clapton wire, Clapton wire. Boy, do I love me some Clapton wire. And if you're a rebuildable nut out there, I'm sure you do too. And guess what? Geek Vape, you know who they are. They offer 4 different spools of this stuff. 4 different types of spools, different configurations, different gauge wires. And this is no Chinese bullshit. This is the good stuff. And it's 15 feet each spool for $6.99. That's it. We're going to go ahead and dive down. I'm going to show you each one of these spools, what they can do. I'm going to let you know which one's my favorite, which one's my second favorite. We'll come back. I'll vape on my favorite build with my favorite Clapton wire that they offer. And I'll let you know if I think it's worth it. And then we'll wrap this sucker up. Yeah? Alrighty, so here's the Geek Vape Clapton wire. Now, it comes in 4 different spools. Each spool comes with 15 feet length of wire on it. And also, each spool is $6.99. Now, these 3 spools all use the same type of wire. A1 Canthal, but the difference is they're using different configurations, different gauges of wire, which I'm going to go over. This spool down here, it uses a different core wire. It's using NI80, Nichrome 80, 26 gauge to be exact as the core wire. And note this, all these spools are using the same Clapton wrap, okay? They're using the same gauge Clapton wrap, 32 gauge A1 Canthal. Another thing to know about Clapton wire is that it reads the resistance off of the core wire. So all these spools, even though they're using the same outside wrap, 32 gauge A1 Canthal, that does not mean that they're going to read the same resistance, okay? With the Clapton wire, it's basically a big ass metal wick is what it is. So most of you vapors out there are using organic cotton as your wicking material, especially if you're using RDAs, right? Well, yeah, with these Clapton wires, that's like another wick on top of a wick, basically. It soaks up more juice. The more juice you soak up, the more juice you vaporize. The more juice you vaporize, the better flavor you're gonna get. So yeah, let's go ahead and get to it, shall we? Alrighty, so here's the first spool of wire that I'm gonna show you guys, and this is the twisted Clapton wire, and it's 2 strands of 28 gauge A1 Canthal that's twisted, okay? And then you got, again, like I mentioned, you got the 32 gauge A1 Canthal, which is your Clapton wrap, which wraps around the twisted 28 gauge Canthal, okay? But yeah, all spools have the same type of design. You got this little wheel of wire, I call it the wheel of wire on the back, and it spins and spins and spins and spins, okay? You got 1 slot up here, 1 slot down here, and in the center you got this plastic screw which keeps this whole thing assembled. But you pull it, you line up the slot right up top because that's where the wire comes out. You line it up with this little space right here, and all you got to do is you just pull it out, and then you can pull the wire out. Just easy peasy, what a sleazy. And then once you have the length that you want, you just cut it. I mean, you guys get the drift, right? Super easy to use, super convenient to use. When you're done, line up this slot with this slot, pull it down, and then spin it. And we're rocking and rolling. And like I mentioned, you got this plastic screw, and this unscrews. There it is right there. And that pops right out. And that right there is your twisted Clapton wire. Reassemble everything. Make sure she's tight. Easy to use. So here's a close-up view of the twisted Clapton wire, and as you guys can see, it's got like waves running through it, okay? And that's that twist. Because again, you got that 32 gauge wrapped over it. Wrapped over that twisted Canthal. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Oh yeah, and another thing I noticed with this twisted Clapton wire is out of all 4 spools, this stuff is definitely the springiest. I think it's the hardest to work with, for sure. So the next spool on the list is your parallel Clapton wire, and this stuff uses the same exact materials as the twisted Clapton wire, okay? You got core, your core wire, which is 28 gauge A1 Canthal, 2 strands which sit parallel, side by side, just like it shows in this picture, and then it uses 32 gauge A1 Canthal as your Clapton wrap, that wraps around the outside of the parallel wire. And I like this stuff more than the twisted, a lot more, because this stuff is more pliable, it's easier to work with, it's easier to do your wraps, it doesn't spring back as much, and the flavor I get, the vape I get off this, is pretty much the same as a twisted. Now all that's going to be subjective, but to me, I think this stuff is better because it's easier to work with. Now it's the same type of design, same spool design. You line up 1 slot with the slot over here to de-spool it or pull it out. Clip it, and if you're building a dual coil, you pull another piece out and clip it and you're rocking. So here's a close-up view of the parallel Clapton wire. It's easier to work with than the twisted, like I mentioned. I mean, when you bend it, there's not much recoil, there's not much spring, there's a little bit of spring, but nothing like the twisted. I'm going to show you real quick. A little bit of spring, not much though. Here's the twisted stuff. Way more spring. The parallel Clapton wire feels like Play-Doh compared to the twisted Clapton. Next spool of Clapton wire is the single strand of 26 gauge A1 Canthal as your core, and then again the 32 gauge A1 Canthal as your Clapton wrap. I'm gonna go ahead and take some of this stuff out, show you how pliable it is, show you how soft it is. It's pretty soft. It's not as soft as the parallel Clapton, but it's pretty soft. And there's a close-up view of this Clapton wire. Now it looks very similar to the parallel Clapton. I mean, it's hard to tell with the naked eye. Let me show you how pliable it is. It's okay. It's okay. still a little bit of spring. Definitely not as soft as the parallel Clapton, but it's still, I think it's softer than the twisted Clapton, for sure. So I went ahead and I measured both Clapton wire, okay? The one on the left is the parallel, the one on the right is the single strand A1 26 gauge Clapton, and the parallel measured out to be 1.5 millimeter in width, and the stuff on the right measured out to be about 1 millimeter in width, so it's a big difference. And you could tell, I mean, you could see it. And then the last spool of Clapton wire is a single strand of 26 gauge NI80 with a 32 gauge wrapped around it, okay? And I tell you, this stuff is soft. Is it as soft as the parallel? That's the thing, okay? So far, the parallel's been the softest. We're gonna see. We are definitely going to see, and we're gonna check measurements as well. So there's a close-up view of this Clapton wire with the 26 gauge NI80, and I tell you what, it looks the same as all the rest. Now let's just see how much spring there is. Oh, and this stuff is easy to wrap, guys. That's what I love about N80. Barely any spring. Less spring than the parallel, guys. So this time we got the parallel Clapton wire on the right, and then we got the 26 gauge NI80 on the left. This stuff's thicker, obviously. It's gonna be, this is the same exact size as the regular 26 gauge A1 Clapton. And I gotta say though, the parallel is softer, but there's definitely more spring with the parallel than there is with the NI80. So right now I'm running a dual coil build sitting in this Tsunami 24, and guess what wire I'm using? The NI80 Clapton wire, the single strand 26 gauge. I tell you, I like this stuff. I get barely any spring back, and the flavor I get is fantastic. Now my second choice is the parallel, the 28 gauge parallel. The flavor I get off that's fantastic. Third choice is a single strand of 26 gauge A1 Kanthal Clapton. So that right there is a quick look at Geek Vape's Clapton wire. Let's go ahead and take her back to FaceTime. So like you guys saw in the close-ups, the build that I'm rocking is the dual 26 gauge single strand NI80 with a 32 gauge Kanthal, A1 Kanthal wrapped around it, and this thing is freaking kicking ass. She's reading at 0.25 ohms. I'm vaping her at 55 watts, got her sitting on this Minikin 150. In this Tsunami 24, the airflow's halfway open all across the board. Here we go. Oh man, the flavor is popping, dude. It's like taking a big ass bite out of what you're freaking vaping. It's almost like drinking the juice. The flavor is just, it's good. Flavor, man. Vapor for days, flavor for days. And the reason why you're getting more vapor is not only because of the wattage you're vaping at and the device you have it in, but the fact that it does suck more juice in. And because it sucks more juice in, you got more juice to vaporize. And because you have more juice to vaporize, you got more vapor. And also because you have more juice to vaporize, you're going to get better flavor. It's a win-win. So one thing I did show you guys in the close-ups is how much juice this sucker holds, these Clapton bills. Let me show you. I'm going to get her nice and dry. Okay, here we go. Just sucks it in. Crazy. These Clapton builds can sure wick. This is for the guy and the gal that don't want to spend the time to do it. They just want the convenience. They want the wire shipped out to them. All they got to do is wrap it, install it, and they're good. So to you rebuildable nuts out there and you newbie rebuildable nuts, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to buy this stuff, I'll post a link down in the description where you could find it. Now, if you want to go check out tutorials, you want to buy your own materials, I'll post links down in the description. I got plenty of tutorials on different builds, different intro builds, Clapton builds, fused Clapton builds, zipper builds. I mean, you name it, I got it. This is Rip Trippers, and remember, smoking is dead, vaping is the future, and the future is now.